Torah teaching from Parashat Behar-Bechukotai in Parashat Behar, God speaks to Moses on Mount Sinai, introducing the laws of the Sabbatical year, Shemitah, and the Jubilee year, Yovel. These laws are foundational expressions of trust in God's provision and a reminder that the land and its people ultimately belong to God. The Sabbatical year, Shemitah. When you come into the land which I give you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for the Lord. Leviticus 25:2. The Israelites were commanded to work the land for 6 years, but in the 7th year, the land was to rest. No sowing, pruning, or harvesting for profit was allowed. Whatever the land produced naturally was to be shared equally between the landowner, the servant, the laborer, the stranger, and even the animals. This year of rest emphasized that sustenance comes not from human toil alone, but from God's blessing. God reassured the people, "If you ask, what will we eat in the 7th year if we do not plant or gather our crops? I will command my blessing for you in the 6th year, and it will yield enough produce for 3 years. The Jubilee year, Yovel. Every 50th year, after 7 cycles of Shemitah, a Jubilee was declared. On Yom Kippur, the shofar was sounded throughout the land, and liberty was proclaimed to all its inhabitants. This meant all Israelite indentured servants were set free, ancestral lands returned to their original families. All agricultural work ceased, just like in the sabbatical year. This cycle restored balance to society, prevented permanent poverty, and reminded the people that true ownership belongs to God. The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. You are strangers and sojourners with me. Laws on property and redemption. The Torah outlines fair practices in commerce. Movable property can be permanently sold. Land sales in Israel are essentially long-term leases until the Jubilee. Prices for land must reflect the number of years left until the Jubilee. A relative can redeem sold land after 2 years by paying the value of the remaining years. However, houses within walled cities are different. They can only be redeemed within the 1st year of the sale. If not, the sale stands and does not reverse in the Jubilee. But Levites, whose inheritance was their cities, always regain their homes in the Jubilee. Compassion and brotherhood. The Torah teaches care for those who fall into poverty. If your brother becomes poor, support him. Take no interest or increase, but fear your God so that your brother may live with you. Law of usury. Even if someone is so poor that he sells himself as a servant, he must be treated with dignity, not as a slave, but as a hired worker. He serves until the Jubilee, then returns to his family. They are my servants whom I brought out of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves. Blessings for obedience. In Parashat Bechukotai, God promises great blessings if Israel follows his commandments. Rain in its season, abundant harvest, peace and security, victory over enemies, divine closeness. I will walk among you. I will be your God, and you shall be my people. Warnings for disobedience, Tochacha. But if the people break the covenant, severe consequences follow: disease, famine, war, exile, and destruction of the land. Yet even in exile, God declares, I will not reject or despise them to destroy them completely. I will remember my covenant with Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. I am the Lord their God. Pledges and valuations, Erichin. The parashah ends with laws about pledges made to God. People may vow their value to God, with fixed amounts set by age and gender. Kosher animals pledged become offerings. Houses and non-kosher items pledged are sold or redeemed at market value, plus 20%. Fields are evaluated based on standard Torah measurements and revert to priests. The primordial Shabbat. Vision before action. Although creation began on a Sunday, the first day, our sages explain that Shabbat actually preceded creation. This was not a Shabbat in time, but a divine vision of perfection existing in the year, mind of God. This teaches us an important principle. While life in this world begins with work and effort, our inner orientation must begin with purpose. The vision of a perfected end should guide the beginning of our actions. Just as Shabbat sanctifies the week that follows it, our higher purpose should shape and give meaning to our daily endeavors. Whether it's Shabbat or the sabbatical year, Shemitah, their spiritual fulfillment only comes after effort, but that effort must itself be inspired by a consciousness of God. A Sabbath unto the Lord should be the foundation upon which our work rests, giving it direction and sanctity. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, the consequences of ignoring Shemitah Leviticus 25:14 states, "If you sell aught to your fellow," Rabbi Yosei, son of Rabbi Shanina, interprets this as a warning. Violating the sabbatical year by trading in its forbidden produce triggers a moral and financial decline. First, one must sell personal belongings, then estates, homes, and eventually, out of desperation, one borrows with interest and may even sell oneself into servitude. This Talmudic passage teaches that disregard for divine limits in pursuit of profit erodes not just wealth but dignity and freedom. Talmud, Kedushin Tonkani, a honesty in business and speech. The Torah commands, "You shall not defraud one another." Leviticus 25:14, 25:17. The first verse refers to financial honesty. The second, to verbal integrity, avoiding hurtful words or misleading advice. Because verbal fraud is internal and hidden, the Torah adds, "You shall fear your God," reminding us that God knows our intentions, even if others do not. Torat Kohanim, Rashi, a righteous person, Chassid, goes further. Not only does he avoid deceiving others, he avoids deceiving himself. Rabbi Bunim of Pshisha, trusting God's blessing in the Shemitah year. The Torah anticipates a natural concern. What shall we eat in the 7th year? Leviticus 25:20. God promises that the 6th year will yield enough for 3 years. Remarkably, this promise comes after 5 years of depletion from continuous planting. Our sages draw a parallel to the 7,000-year history of the world. For 6,000 years, humanity toils. The 7th millennium will be an eternal Shabbat, an era of peace and divine presence, the days of Moshiach. We may wonder, if the spiritual giants of the past couldn't bring about redemption, how can we, spiritually worn and weary, do it? Yet God promises that our small deeds done with faith and struggle are especially precious. He will bless our efforts, meager though they seem, to sustain and usher in the era of eternal Shabbat. The Lubavitcher, Rebbe the Jews' intrinsic, freedom, for they are my servants whom I took out of the land of Egypt. They cannot be sold into slavery. Leviticus 25:42. From the Exodus onward, God engraved freedom into the identity of the Jewish people. No external power can erase this inner freedom. It is eternal and unassailable. Maharal engraved statutes, Torah, as our essence. If you walk in my statutes, Leviticus 26:3. The Hebrew word chak, statute, also means engraved. The Torah was first given not written, but engraved in stone. Engraving symbolizes something deeper than writing. While ink sits atop parchment, engraved letters are inseparable from the stone. This reflects 2 dimensions of Torah in our lives. One is external, understood and emotionally experienced, like ink on parchment. The other is essential, Torah etched into the very soul of the Jew. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi explained that every Jew has this engraved Torah within. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of Lubavitch added, "Even when that inner letter is obscured by life's dust, the core remains intact. All we need is to brush away the surface, and the divine letter, the essence of the soul, shines through." The meaning of Away. Reward Leviticus 26:3 promises, "I will give your rain in due season." Yet Rabbi Jacob teaches that ultimate reward for mitzvot, commandments, is not found in this world. He tells the story of a man fulfilling 2 commandments, honoring his father and chasing away the mother bird and dying in the process. Where then is his reward? The Talmud answers, that it may be well with you refers to the world to come. a day that is wholly good and wholly long. Talmud, Kiddushin, 39b Maimonides, Rambam, explains, material blessings promised in the Torah, peace, prosperity, health, are not rewards but conditions. They create a world where one can fulfill Torah without distraction. The true reward is the eternal life of the soul, merited through devotion to God's wisdom and will. Mishneh Torah, Laws of Repentance. Behar-Bechukotai reminds us that spiritual vision must guide physical action, that holiness can shape economics, agriculture, and justice. It teaches that every Jew is engraved with divine purpose, and, when we live by that truth, our efforts are not only fruitful but eternal. The portion of Bechukotai begins with a conditional promise. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments, I will give your rain in its season. Leviticus 26:3. This raises a classic theological question. Why does the Torah emphasize material blessings for obedience when the Talmud and sages like Maimonides teach that the true reward for mitzvot lies in the world to come? The Lubavitcher Rebbe addresses this by drawing a parallel from Torah law. Just as a farm worker is allowed to eat from the produce while laboring, even before receiving wages, so too are we, as workers in God's world, entitled to enjoy the material blessings that result from our service. The true reward for fulfilling mitzvot comes in the world to come, but God's justice and kindness ensure that we are sustained during our efforts in this world. The Rebbe further elaborates using three legal models in Jewish law: slave, employee, and partner. A slave must be treated equally to the master. An employee must be provided for during their labor, and a partner shares in both responsibility and benefit. Each model reflects a different level of relationship with God, and underlines that material blessing is not the ultimate reward, but the necessary provision that enables us to serve fully. This teaching is echoed by the Ran, who noted that while other religions delay their promises to the afterlife, the Torah dares to promise tangible blessings in the here and now, because it speaks the truth. The Talmud and Rashi interpret, "I will give your rain in due season," to mean rain will come at the most convenient times, such as on the eve of Shabbat. Even the trees will bear fruit, as Torat Kohanim states, and in the days of Moshiach, every tree will produce edible fruit. Yet the Torah reminds us that peace is the foundation of all blessings. There may be food and drink, but if there is no peace, there is nothing. Rashi on Leviticus 26:6. The verse, 5 of you shall pursue 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, Leviticus 26:8, is not a mathematical error but a spiritual truth. The power of many united in Torah observance far surpasses the sum of individual efforts. God's blessings are not only rewards, they are tools to empower us in our mission. However, the Torah does not shy away from warning us about the consequences of neglecting this divine mission. According to Nachmanides, the blessings and curses described are not natural outcomes but hidden miracles, divinely orchestrated events that may appear natural, but are spiritual in origin. Other thinkers, like the Shallow, describe reward and punishment as built into the very fabric of creation. Just as jumping out of a window leads naturally to a fall, so too do our spiritual actions carry inherent consequences. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi adds a deeper dimension. Suffering is not punishment, but healing. Like removing a splinter, the process is painful, but it restores spiritual wholeness. The Hasidic masters stress that the most dangerous sin is the feeling of insignificance, thinking, "I don't really matter." This mindset breeds apathy and leads to what the Torah calls walking casually with God. The worst punishment is when God responds in kind, as if saying, "Very well, live as though nothing matters." This is not indifference, but the ultimate consequence of a person's choice to disconnect from purpose. Yet even in exile, God's bond with his people remains unbroken. Even when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away. Leviticus 26:44. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught that wherever the Jews were exiled, the Shekinah, divine presence, went with them. Whether in Egypt, Babylon,